bodies of light enough.
I know. I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Welcome everybody to our Energy and Sustainability Working Party. Any apologies for absence?
I don't think we have actually.
I think we're here,
yes, we're all here.
Yeah. Okay.
Other than Alicia, of course, gives her apologies.
Yeah. Thank you. Have we any declarations of pecuniary interest and request for dispensations? No.
No, none received.
Minutes of the previous. Yeah. Minutes of the previous meeting. To confirm the minutes of the meeting held on Monday, the 23rd of August, 2021 as a true record. Do you have a proposer and a seconder, please? Aaron, proposer, seconder.
You're not getting anybody.
John, thank you. Show of hands, please. Thank you. I wasn't there, so nor Alan. Okay, thank you.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, would we like to go through the minutes? Colin, is it?
Yep, I can do that.
Okay. Page 21. Page 22.
I have not yet done C on that bit. Obviously, they were away in any case, and I've not got around to it yet. I will do.
Yeah, thank you.
So D is organised for the 25th of September. So this weekend, this Saturday coming.
Yeah.
I've managed to get a few details out to people as far as sustainable transport is concerned, but the more the merrier.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I noticed that Suffolk County Council are not very quick on updating the cards and the bus stops and that sort of thing anyway, are they? Some, have been missing for a while, and some are still temporary.
So I have reminded Richard with respect of the one outside Lidl.
Yeah.
But he's collecting them up. They collect up so they've got a decent list and send them all off to the printers at once.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Colin. Yeah, I didn't for 1 minute think it was. That's it. I knew that you'd be on to them, but as usual, Suffolk County Council, I'm the quickest. Yeah, thank you. Okay, move on to item 5, actions from the previous meeting, not on the agenda. Existing green spaces, Nick. Is Nick here? Or?
He's on annual leave.
Okay. B is the follow-up with professionals and WSDC regarding installation of solar panels to HTC buildings. That's Gary, I think is away, is it?
I'm not sure. I think he couldn't make it because he's got children's duties today.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. The visit to the energy from waste plant at Great Blakenham.
Councillor Burns distributed, I think, a link for going on a virtual trip, but we can't go on an actual physical trip at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that. I don't think I see that link actually. I don't.
I got a feeling I might have only sent it to you, Colin. Just
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can attach it to the minutes when they go
Yeah.
out.
I don't know where I found it. Was it a West Suffolk email? Maybe I can't remember.
No, it was a days out type thing.
Okay, yeah, can't remember where I got it from. Okay.
Lovely, thank you. Item D, climate change action programme.
We can progress that now that Sarah is back. So we'll be pushing on with that. That's time for October.
Yeah. Okay. And the Big Green Week.
Well, that's happening with the sustainable market.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. I think Nick's helped leading on that, isn't he? When he gets back.
No, Nick's away until the 27th.
Oh, right. Okay.
This is a sustainable market that's happening this Saturday.
Oh, right. Okay. I did read something about he was doing some, recycling again. Is that right?
Well, he has his recycling.
Yeah.
His Haverhill does recycling.
Yeah.
Or keep Haverhill recycling rather.
Yeah.
So he was doing that this Saturday on the 18th.
Yeah.
But some of the volunteers who work with him will be around anyway. But actually, one of the things that the tree warden stall will be doing is showing a different use for Tetra Paks to use them as seed pots for trees.
Brilliant. And then the last item, commuting survey.
Well, that's what we just talked about in terms of the passenger transport.
Right. Okay. Doke. Anyone got anything to say on any of those items at all? No. Okay. Item 6, public forum. If there is any members of the public, no.
There's no members joined us actually in the room, but there may be people watching.
Okay. Item 7, decarbonising Haverhill's homes. This is one down to you, Alan. I have gone through the slides. I haven't watched the complete video yet, but I did look for the slides. Thanks for putting the effort into doing it. Yeah.
You're welcome. I've posed some questions in there at various points, a few scattered around, like, or prompts for questions like, what will West Suffolk Council do? And I think I posed the question, do we know of any, well, they won't be official demonstration sites, otherwise we'd know about them, but anything that might constitute a bit of encouragement to other people to join in the way of anyone doing anything, really.
Yeah, and I think, what you said there was, maybe the best point out of the whole of that, it's all good, but if we can, try and steer Havebury or even Barley Homes into doing some district, heating scheme, using ground source, something like that, as being a beacon for the town, that would be absolutely, marvellous. I've got, as you have, Alan, until it financially stacks up for a lot of our residents, I can't really see a huge take up except for those that are more affluent. But the way ahead possibly is the district heating schemes, that sort of stuff. And as you said, trying to pressure West Suffolk into for any future developments to make sure that they're future proof. They've got the larger size radiators in there, they've got underfloor heating, that sort of stuff that's ready for air source or ground source heat pumps. All the better if they can get the developer to fit them in at an early stage, because I've got a serious reservation if gas boilers are put in. Gas boilers will stay in there for a very, very long time.
As long as people can afford the fuel. And actually what's just happened the last couple of days is pointing the direction. If we had a gas price accelerator, like in theory, we've got a fuel vehicle fuel accelerator, haven't we? Except that it keeps being the accelerator keeps being tied up with a piece of string, doesn't it? Instead of applying. Market forces or an accelerator that the government may have to apply at some stage to just discourage people from.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it had to be sticks and carrots. Otherwise, it'll be mayhem, won't it?
Yeah.
But assuming there is some kind of a carrot, which I just tripped over the other day, was this replacement for the. I'm sorry, I can't remember the terminology now. I can't even remember which slide it's on. But there is currently a subsidy per unit of energy that you capture, isn't there, through a heat pump? And that's about to be a capital grant, isn't it, to defray the cost of installation in the first place instead of an ongoing payment. So there's a bit of a carrot there, but there may have to be a stick as well, accidental or deliberate stick of gas just becoming ridiculously expensive compared with electricity. Yeah,
I was looking yesterday. Sorry, quick one. Just to make a quick point, John, and then I'll go into you. I did look yesterday at GridWatch, and actually 50% of all the electricity being generated was generated by gas. Combined cycle gas turbines. So, when people are saying, we've got clean electricity, actually, it's a lot of it. Yesterday, 50% of it was actually being produced by gas. I think only 7% was being produced by wind. So we're all, there's a whole lot of stuff that's got to be sorted out, over the next few years. Sorry, John.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to what Boris says, whether you believe him or not, and I got my own personal views, obviously saying, this will all sort itself out, once the economy grows and everything. But the fact it's gone up 324%, the wholesale prices, is ridiculous. The reason being, primarily, of course, is where the gas supply comes from. Nearly 80% of our gas in this country is now imported, mostly from the Middle East, Qatar in particular. We do get a little bit coming across from places like Russia and things like that. So we're always going to have this problem with gas. I read the document through. I did very briefly watch the videos, not only once, I'm afraid. I think in the first instance, in terms of your questions, Alan, I think in the first instance, I would send this to David Roach, because he is chair of the, he's obviously a cabinet member, but he's responsible for the new local plan. Yeah. And all of this needs to go in the local plan.
Yeah, but I think we need to do this, what Alan has suggested as, this group and the town council.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not talking about, I'm talking about as a town council. Sorry, no, I'm talking about town council. Sorry, no. Right. I know he's a town councillor, but I think it needs to officially get sent to West Suffolk in the first instance, because it's got a lot of thought in there, a lot of key things. There are only a few of us who are on that local plan working party, including myself, but ultimately it ought to go to all 64 West Suffolk councillors and all 75 Suffolk councillors. Yeah. Sorry, Colin, before I carry on. Go on.
Yeah, Colin, yeah.
Sorry, muted.
Don't let me interrupt you. You finish what you're going to say.
Sorry. So lots of good stuff in there. The one that you has just been alluded to just now about Haverhill, and in your report, I think you mentioned Stonewater, and of course there are loads of them around. The big problem is, particularly with Haverhill, not so much with Stonewater, where I think I don't know whether your place is one of those, but it's okay. Is the Haverhill units are now separated by a lot of private units, where when they first when the council obviously built the stuff many years ago, they were they had big blocks, so the only stuff that's really together are the flats in certain locations. There's big gaps between, so to try, it's a bit like the insulation process that they did from government grants about 4 years ago, whenever it was, particularly up on my estate. It ended up with patchwork quilt, if you like, of houses with there and houses without, because nobody had the thought to actually ask the private owners whether they wanted it done or not. So it has to be a coordinated effort by all. And I agree, you know, if Haverhill can do it or Stonewater, I'm not aware, unless anybody else knows, I'm not aware of any existing schemes in town. I'm not actually, apart from Stowe Country Park, I'm not actually aware of many other ground source places in West Suffolk. I know that Stowe recently, what's it called, West Stowe, isn't it? Had planning permission recently for it. We're very backward, or, you know, well, we know this from a West Suffolk point of view. It's very backward in many respects because of the local plan, you know, types of minimum space standards, all this sort of stuff. But I think the big people to talk, you know, is to get on board are, you know, the Red Rose, Persimmon and Bloor Homes and all these other people who are building big estates. And then really, as Colin has mentioned before, you really shouldn't be installing gas boilers on these estates, but they're making no effort to do it. I spoke to Redrow about 10 days ago, and they've got absolutely no plans for any ground source, air source, solar panels, unless West Suffolk tell them to do it, which they obviously are not. So that was my bit, but very good report. Thank you, Alan. I thought it was really good. Thank you.
We've got Colin and then Liz.
Oh, well, I'll certainly give way to the mayor.
All right. Sorry, Liz. Yeah.
I forgot what I was going to say. They do seem to be quite expensive. Well, you're saying they're expensive, some versions of this. And the one, was it I'm just having a look on my phone, excuse me a moment. The one which is like outside, air source heat pump, that's on the outside. I think you've got a picture of it. They do look quite bulky and not very nice aesthetic, but I suppose that's how they are at the moment. I don't suppose there's any push to improve those at all.
Well, it's got to heat. I mean, I've installed before now an aircon unit, which is pulling heat out of the house rather than stuffing it into the house or someone. And that was, you know, taking up a few tiles on their patio,
right,
and making a bit of a noise as well, because it's got a big fan in it, moving air around. And that was just cooling one room, you know, a few square meters. So, you know, if you're thinking about heating the whole of the house in the depth, or almost the whole house, I mean, it could be that, you know, some electric top up, or while there is gas top up might be occurring, but you could try to heat the whole house. It has to be a big unit that you just got to shift enough air past a heat exchanger to capture enough energy. And that's why, you know, people who can afford it would rather, and I've got a nice back garden, but it's not big enough to really put horizontal array in, you know, underground, you know, dig the entire garden up and put stuff in down trenches. And I couldn't get, I don't think, Tony may tell me I'm wrong, but I don't think down a, I don't know, 4 foot, 5 foot wide lane, I could get in a drilling rig to actually go downwards, you know, rather than sideways. So, you know, I think it's going to be a combination of cost pressures and, well, actually, I don't have the space to do anything other than go down, and I can't afford that. That will push people towards air source, you know,
and possibly how much the government can give us towards it.
Of which we don't know, because the legislation hasn't even gone through yet.
That's why we need district heating systems for, like, you know, housing estates, things like that, especially for new, you know, proposed housing. And that's the other issue, is that air source heat pumps can be quite noisy, and if you're living in, you know, enclosed areas with maybe 4 or 5 houses backing onto each other, the cumulative effect on a window, I know the windows hopefully will be shut, but there is quite a lot of noise with them. You know, that's the thing that worries me about some of the internal devices as well. They're like large refrigerators, and you know how noisy your refrigerator can be sometimes. You know, they can be, you know, even louder. But anyway, these are all things that can be overcome. But I say, what the real way ahead is to do larger schemes. I've done, you know, quite a lot of boreholes over the last even 20 years, for ground source heat pumps for large properties for wealthy people, and they do work extremely well. But it's people that got space to get rigs in, and they want to do the right thing, and they're willing to spend quite a lot of money to do so. But that's my big concern is Parkway Estate, Clements Estate, Chalkston Estate, the densely packed parts of Haverhill. How the heck are they going to do? It just doesn't bear thinking about. And I just hope we just don't get left behind. Especially with rising, fuel and energy prices. Already, we're talking an average of every year around 8,000 people die of cold. It's just not acceptable. For that to be happening as it is, and I'm just concerned that could potentially get worse. But anyway, that's out of our remit. But but I think we should do, us as a town council should do all we could, or can, to promote Havebury, or one of the larger organisations, Barley Homes, putting their money where their mouth is around environmental issues, and doing a showcase of one of their schemes, as a district heating scheme. So, they do work well. The new hospital, well, it's not so new now, but that had 600 boreholes. Whole of that hospital in Oxford is heated by ground source heat pumps. And the technology is improving all the time. As I say, let's try and persuade Havebury or Barley Homes or someone like that to actually do something, and then go forward from there. Colin, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I was going to just highlight on a few points. The West Suffolk Council did approach us, and we were kind of threw a lot in when they were looking for funding from the big government money at the beginning of this year that we went for separately as well, to do a district heating program for the High Street based out of the AXA building. So it is on their radar. So I know that they're also interested in community energy projects. So I think we'd be pushing at an open door in that respect. And I am aware, the latest I've heard from the car parks people is they have found a way to get power from the AXA building across to the car park, so that we can have some additional charging points put in. So they are up for that. I haven't had a response, but earlier today I emailed Penny Mills in respect of slide 35 that Councillor Stinchcombe prepared, asking the question of whether it was possible for the planning authority to bring forward a supplementary planning policy on the existing local plan whilst it's preparing a new local plan. Clearly, we know that Councillor Roach is leading on the production of a new local plan, and Councillor Burns, etc., are on that committee. But that's a few years down the line. And as Councillor Burns said, we've got houses that are getting planning permission now in large numbers. And I thought it was absolutely common sense that even if Redrow won't actually put in heat pumps, etc., that they, as Councillor Stinchcombe said, at least install radiators or underfloor heating that are suitable for them. That can't really cost very much and has to be a good selling point. I wouldn't dream of buying a new house now that was using old technology that was going to leave me high and dry in 8 or 9 years' time. That's no good to me at all. And I from a marketing point of view, I can't understand why any housing company would want to do that.
It's a great selling point, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, because basically in your mortgage, when you buy your house, you're basically paying for the next 20 years electricity at the same time.
Yeah.
And put it on the mortgage. So it's ideal.
Yeah. Liz?
Yeah, I had my boiler service the other day actually, and the British gas guy came out, and he was sort of trying to urge me, because my boiler's sort of getting a bit old now, to have a new boiler fitted. And I asked him about heat pumps and things like that, and he really was like, "Oh, don't need to worry about that. That's a few years away yet," and all this sort of thing. He probably didn't know much about it, to be honest. But I'm thinking, the companies themselves, should they now not be thinking about the changeover? And when they're recommending boilers to be replaced, perhaps we should be looking at those options. But I don't suppose they've got the government incentive to do that. I don't know if anyone else has got any thoughts on that.
John?
I was only going to say, my son is buying a new house down in Harlow. He asked about ground and air source heat pumps, and they basically said, yeah, that's fine if you want to pay for it. They're not geared, they're not geared up to change their design, if you know what I mean. A lot of them just use bog standard stock house designs, and I don't think they really need guidance from the government. It's already well good the government saying in 5 years' time or whatever it is, you can't replace a gas boiler, but there are millions of people out there with gas boilers, and there's no way, my boiler is extremely old. I don't replace it for my own reasons, because I know there's only two things that can ever go wrong with it. I've got spare parts for both of those there anyway, if I wanted to get gas engineering to fit them. But I think that is a big problem, as Liz says. A friend of mine across close to me, he's a gas engineer, does boilers, and he's just they've got no plans to actually change their method of if someone needs a new boiler in 5 years' time, as far as they're concerned, they will get a new boiler in 5 years' time.
Developers seem to be very sort of conservative organisations, as in they don't really want to, try anything new. So what I think will happen is that there will be a developer out there, hopefully, that has actually got the foresight to think, as we've said, let's put underfloor heating in, etc. Okay, it's a little bit more expensive, but the younger generations, and the way things are going, it's the future. They're going to sell their houses hopefully a lot quicker than the other guys, and then that's going to make the other developers then race to catch up. But it's just someone actually sort of biting the bullet, and but it's down as well, leadership from councils and planning authorities to say to these people that we've got a vision for our town for the future. We want developers that are actually going to put underfloor heating in, oversized radiators, and we want them future proof.
I think maybe we would have a bit more oomph if we were the size of Milton Keynes, though, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
We here in Haverhill, we're a tiny market, aren't we? So it's difficult, but we can be a beacon for West Suffolk. I don't think there's a problem with that.
But I think the problem as well is obviously, Northwest and Northeast went through outline, and that was their golden opportunity to, do something, and it was just a little bit early, before. A lot of stuff started really coming forward.
But there's a majority of houses yet to be built and have yet to have planning permission, so it's certainly not too late.
No, but I was thinking about that. I wasn't sure whether if you give outline planning permission for X amount of houses and they buy that land on the premise that they can build 2,500 houses, and then suddenly we sort of say, right, now all those houses have got to have X, Y, Z fitted to them. Is that legitimate to do that, or is it possible to do that, or I'm not quite sure.
Not according to West Suffolk, Tony, sorry to interrupt. You know as well as I do that there's many things that are we would love to have now, but we can't because, quote, you never decided it at outline. But of course, that outline, we're not even asked about them. As Dave Roach said recently on meeting, and we've seen it before, they miss off construction management plans and, things like that. Oh, you didn't ask for it to outline, so we can't include it now. So the only thing at the moment is included in the thing is a vague reference to charging points, but it's not compulsory. In terms of a local plan side of things, yes, they can put it on the detail on the the reserve matters. The only one that is definitely on everyone is the 110 litres of water consumption a day. But there's been many things I've sat on recently. I get so frustrated where you ask for something to be done, like solar panels. Oh no, we can't do that because you never asked for it. And that's, in many ways, West Suffolk may think they're very forward in some respects, but they're quite backward compared to a lot of other councils out there whose local plan include all this. And what Colin was saying earlier on about the local plan, what we've been told is, although the local plan is due to come out or to be finalised by early 2024, they are saying from a planning perspective, they will start taking note of it probably the end of 2022, because it'll be getting towards finalisation then. So that's, but we need to make sure that all these things that's mentioned in your report, Alan, and Tony's mentioned, and Liz I mentioned, it has to be in that local plan. They cannot just be I keep being told in the meetings I go to, oh yes, it will be in the new local plan. But the trouble is, in 2 years' time, we may forget about some of these things, so we need to constantly remind them. So, as you rightly say, Alan, it's a good, let's be the forefront, if that's the right word to use, or something, a phrase to use.
Vanguard.
Vanguard, that's a good one. Well done, thank you.
But is there anything to stop? Sorry, Colin. Yeah.
Go on, if you want to finish that, mine's a different topic.
Yeah, no, I was going to quickly say, is there anything to stop us as a town council, planning committee, having policy around sustainable development, etc., etc.?
Well, you've started one, Tony, haven't you, already, by saying we're not going to have any more major developments until the health infrastructure gets sorted out. So you've got the nucleus of our local. Yeah. I mean, it's not a decision policy. It's a commenting policy, isn't it? But we can bolt onto anything we like since you've started. Yeah,
I think we should do. With our council's agreement, I think that we should do that. Yeah.
I think that's something you'd need to have kind of sketched out in the planning committee, so that it could come forward to full council for adoption. Yeah. I mean, the policy document doesn't really need to be any more than position statements for the town council. That is what our position will be on certain topics. When if we're asked to comment, then at least developers know in advance that we're likely to be saying these things. Yeah. We don't make the decision, so we don't have to worry about predetermination.
Yeah, brilliant. Could we possibly get that on the agenda for obviously with Pat's consent, for a future planning meeting? Does it have to be an agenda item for us to discuss?
We have to be written first as well, so it probably won't be tomorrow.
No, I understand. No, I understand that. Yeah.
What I was going to ask, Chair, is actually one of the things that interested me in the document, Councillor Stinchcombe, was your reference to the impact of both air source and ground source heat pumps on the temperature of the environment. That the soil could be cooler with ground source heat pump, and gardens might feel colder if you have an air source heat pump. I wondered whether those are simply scientific facts, that somebody's taking the heat away from it, then by definition it's going to be lower, or whether it was actually being reported as noticeable for a human would actually notice in their garden that the summers aren't quite as warm as they used to be. Now I've got a heat pump.
The former, it's just a statement of fact. But yeah, is it observable? I don't know. I just imagine if you had a sort of courtyard development with 4 people's fans all blowing air into the middle of the courtyard, you would feel a bit chillier there, wouldn't you? You know, you ought to be able to measure a difference. If you compared that with a controlled courtyard where they hadn't installed any air source, you would expect to be able to measure a tiny difference.
Yeah, I'd imagine there'd be a design issue then that to not do that. I suppose I wondered whether or not, in terms of soil temperatures, whether because that would be measurable more than, because obviously day to day air temperatures change anyway. So I would have thought you know it may be true that there's a half degree difference, but you really wouldn't know. But Tony may know more.
Yeah, well, there have been cases of where, especially in the early days of ground source, where loop system, where the actual coiled loops were put into people's gardens at too shallow a depth, is that they'd be running because they can run it because they're full of antifreeze, run it below freezing, and eventually turn the whole of someone's garden into a permafrost, basically. And where it's run under like patios, the actual ice has heaved up all the patios. There's stuff around it, so that's why they always recommend putting it down at 2 meters depth. But
that's a fair old trench in your garden, isn't it? Or set of trenches.
If you actually, when you actually look at the pictures of where it's done, I mean, some they have to have 600 meters of trenching. It's a huge amount of trenching. That's why the actual the borehole side of things may be more expensive, but a lot more efficient, especially if you've got the right geology. The open loop, where you're actually using the water, which is always around about 9 degrees, as long as you put it back and you work out exactly what the permeability of the soil that you're taking the water from, to make sure that you don't get any circulation. They work absolutely brilliantly. But I've never seen any work done on, say you had a whole town that had open loop boreholes, if they theoretically could actually draw the groundwater temperature down. I don't know. It all depends on the hydrology, how the groundwater's moving, etc. But say definitely on the shallower stuff, that is something to fear potentially.
Sorry, could you explain what you mean by open loop? I don't think that was in Councillor Stinchcombe's report. Apologies to that.
That's what we tend to do.
That was my hidden slide, Colin.
Oh.
The one I didn't put in because I thought, oh no, that enough.
Everyone knows that. Yes.
No, that people won't know what the hell I'm talking about. So I didn't.
We do a lot for people with, say, doing barn conversions, things like that. So basically, they've got to virtually rebuild the barn inside, etc. So it's an opportunity moment to put in underfloor heating, which is obviously the best method of distributing ground source heat. So generally, something like a barn is isolated anyway, so they need a water supply. And most of the time it's miles from the nearest water supply, and water companies want to charge them £30,000 or whatever to link them up and things like that, and they may have 3 or 4 other people's properties to have leeway across. So basically we'd go and do them a borehole for their water supply, so that water can then be used, that water supply borehole can actually be used to go for a heat pump as well. So basically you just have a solenoid that goes through the heat pump on the actual pressurized water system, so that water's coming up out of the ground at 9 degrees. Instead of going into the household water system, or it will go around the household water system as well, is that the solenoid will open on demand and push that water through the heat pump. But obviously you've got to get rid of the water once it's gone through the heat pump. So you also do another borehole that goes back down to the aquifer. So basically that is your loop. So that is your open loop. So you just got to make sure that the boreholes are far enough apart. And say you're just taking it from the chalk. Say you drill down 30 meters to the top of the chalk, and you're extracting water from, say, 60 meters. On the other hole, you would just drill down into the permeable top of the chalk. You wouldn't actually have to drill down to the water table, or it's preferable not to drill down into the water table, and that water will then return back down that borehole, then filter through the chalk down into the aquifer and
It's
warming
like
itself up.
a very deep soak away.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
so,
you.
Yeah.
And am I right that an individual scheme doesn't need permission from the water authority to take quite a few tens of tons of water a day, but there is an upper limit on that?
Yeah, it's 20 tonnes per day, 20,000 litres per day. But to be fair, the Environment Agency, I mean, if you're trying to extract water for a business or something else, they're very reluctant to issue licenses. But if it's for a renewable heat scheme, heat pump, and you're all you're doing is just borrowing that heat from that water and returning it to the ground, then the Environment Agency has sort of got much more quicker process of licensing, and they're much more willing to license it, because basically all you're doing is borrowing the heat from it and returning it back to the aquifer anyway.
But it does actually need a license, even if it's an easy license. It does actually need a license.
Yeah, anything over 20 tonnes. But to be fair,
over 20 tonnes.
Yeah,
but up to there, it's free fire. So if we could have, should people get the bit between the teeth, we could have neighbours all sort of firing off, and there wouldn't necessarily be any regulation. They could. There's a danger. Is there of their boreholes conflicting with one another?
They don't recommend that you drill a borehole within 20 metres of someone else's borehole. Yeah, and that's
So how do you know? How do you even know where someone else has a borehole? There's no map of.
There is.
Is there?
Yeah, you register. Yeah, every borehole, even if it's unlicensed.
So you register the borehole, but you don't need permission, providing you stick within the
exactly. Yes.
The 20 tonnes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask Tony on that, which is an interesting concept, because I mentioned earlier on about 110 litres per day. I guess I don't know if that's must be per person, I presume. I don't know. I'll have to look at. I can't remember what it was now. On new builds, 110 litres a day. What you're saying is 20,000 litres a day before you need a licence, effectively.
Yeah.
That potentially is a lot of houses you could link together with one borehole loop, as you described, Colin. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you could in 110 into we'll call it 200 into 20,000. That's what.
Well, they're two different things, John. One is that the 110 is consumption of water. It's water that's going back down a drain.
Yes.
But we're talking about borrowing the water here. This is.
No, I understand that. No, but it was the concept of, because obviously a borehole, the same borehole could provide drinking water, couldn't it, through a filtration system?
Oh well, that wouldn't be allowed, would it, Tony?
Yeah, you can.
Well, sorry, I mean not under the limit of 20 tonnes a day, would it?
20,000 litres per day. Yes, you can. Yeah.
Oh, you can. You can abstract.
Yeah, I can.
Oh, so this is not. Sorry, I'm confused.
I'm trying to combine the two together. Sorry.
Yeah.
So anyone can abstract 20,000 litres from the ground.
Whatever you do with it.
For the purpose. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I see. I thought that was a relaxation purely for heat pumps. Okay.
No.
So anyone can take 2 tonnes of 20
tonnes of water.
20 tonnes of water out of the ground a day without a license.
Exactly.
You've got to be able to do it, though, haven't you?
Yeah.
So I guess that
it's not cheap, especially if I do it.
Yeah. But we're talking about closed systems mostly in towns, aren't we?
Yeah.
The videos with the bungalows, and then also the longer video with the flats, etc. They were all closed loop systems, and actually, it's interesting that they have to register the boreholes, because if they, I guess, people are going to notice them being drilled, but afterwards, it was just quite amazing to see that there's nothing more than what looks like a rodding hole cap on it. To be perfectly honest, you wouldn't have a clue what was under there.
Yeah, you got to be careful though. I think it was in Vancouver. There was everyone that knew what they knew. There's quite around Vancouver. There's a whole lot of heat pumps being used, and has been for years. Canada's very, very much further ahead than what we are, and all the local heat pump engineers and drilling companies were pretty much the same sort of price, because they knew what the geological sequence was there, and all the foibles of the geology, etc. And this guy decided to get someone in that was cheaper, and didn't know that if he went down to a certain depth, that the water's under huge artesian pressure. And basically on the side of a hill in Vancouver, and drilled down into this artesian supply, which basically came up, and it just started washing away the sides of the borehole, made the borehole bigger, more water, and it washed away the side of the hill, other properties. It ended up costing, because the blokes, they've all done a runner then, basically, and the local authorities had to sort it all out, and it's an absolute bloody nightmare. So, you've got to know really what you're doing, and that does happen. Yeah.
Hire an expert, eh?
Well, yeah, as I always say to people, always try and get your well drilled by someone, a local well drilling company, because the UK is the most geologically diverse country for its size in the world, and geology does change very, very quickly. That's why for well drilling, I always try to stick in East Anglia, because I pretty we'll know the geology.
Yeah, if only we knew anybody any good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you. That's really interesting, by the way, Councillor Stinchcombe. That was really interesting
that was good, Alan.
presentation.
Yeah. That's a good document. Yeah.
Good. Okay, so we need to add a few things before it's sent on, like just adding Barley Homes into the list of possible, local outfits that would act as possible demonstration pioneers.
Well, I would, if I may interrupt there, certainly Barley Homes. I would actually, if you want to say Haverhill, Stonewater,
and Suffolk County Council, we've got schools to be built in Haverhill.
Yeah. But I was thinking about actually the developers as well.
Yeah.
Don't have to name them particularly, but developers are probably a number one on that list, I would have suggested. So I think, you need to...
okay. Local authorities and local developers.
And I would maybe just call it housing associations rather than necessarily...
Yeah. Thank you. And this trying to sell, perhaps it needs an extra slide on what ought to be selling points for developers. I mean, we're not talking about compulsion here or the local plan, but just trying to sell the idea to developers, if they get as far as through the presentation as that. Selling points to them are that they've got a heat pump ready property rather than a heat pump not ready property. I didn't quite understand your point about mortgage, Colin. Was that a...
Well, what I was thinking was that effectively with heat pumps and renewables, they're all front loaded on the costs. So if you're buying a new house with a mortgage and it's got a gas central heating system in, then you buy a house and then you buy the gas over the entire time you're there, you're constantly buying gas to heat it. Whereas if you buy a house and you pay a little bit extra when you buy your house, and that house comes with a air source heat pump, you don't have to pay for anything afterwards because the heat's all coming for nothing, particularly if there's solar panels on the roof powering it. So effectively, within your mortgage, the extra bit you're paying is the utility. That is, you're getting free heating. So effectively, all that people are being asked to do is pay for heating the house up front, and they can put it on the mortgage.
Okay, thank you. I think I've got that power.
Although obviously you end up paying a lot more over 25 years, 35 years, whatever your mortgage is. I can't remember what the percentage. It depends on the interest rate, of course. But yeah, going back to my son. Sorry to interrupt again. All those, not just the sustainable stuff, all the other stuff that you want. I said about things like solar panels and even just running network cable around the building. It's all extra. It's like buying a car these days. So you want four wheels with it, or they're extra. And I think this is where the developers, from a PR exercise, really should be putting out there. We're working towards a sustainable building program, we're putting ground source in, we're putting solar panels, we're putting charging points in, or if we're not doing it, at least put them in. I mean, the Barley Homes development down Manor Road, they've actually, it looks to me anyway, walking around, I think Aaron probably knows more than I do, certainly the ones I looked at yesterday, everyone's got a charging point, which wasn't actually in the reserve matters application for the site, because I was one of the ones who was on the planning. They were quite reluctant at the time. It looks to me like they may have taken that conscious decision to do that. Okay, good tick, if you like, but where's all the rest of it? The other things that has been mentioned. Considering Barley Homes is 100% owned by West Suffolk, it's a classic good way of doing it. And the other ones you might want to mention are things like leisure centres. I know that's West Suffolk, but must be a massive consumer of energy, not least trying to heat swimming pools.
I think they already have a heat recovery system, don't they, that takes the heat out the top of the swimming pool area of the dome kind of thing and pumps it back down again.
Not certain. I don't necessarily think they've got it. They may have in other ones, but I'm not certain about Haverhill. I mean, Bury, for example, is going to, the leisure centre at Bury is going to be knocked down and rebuilt completely, because it's just not energy efficient at all. And obviously, and that's why they want to move it across the way to Western Way. So I'm not convinced necessarily, like even the £1.5 million investment they did relatively recently, I don't think they're doing it. Now, West Suffolk House is looking at, they are. There's an application at the moment we're dithering about battery storage for the solar panels. We're just dithering about where it's going to go.
They're on open loop boreholes anyway, aren't they? They're on a heat pump system there.
At West Suffolk House, yeah, because it's a relatively new building.
Yeah.
I think it's only about 8-9 years old, isn't it? Something like that. Yeah. But I think all those sort of things, they do put solar panels on their own buildings and things, but they have some quite big, apart from the leisure centres, some quite big areas that they rent out, or, and I'm sure they should be. I'm sure they may well be, but they don't sort of publicise it very well, what they're doing.
For ourselves, I intervened in terms of some work going on at the zone, because there's an air conditioning unit that has failed down there, and they got a price for replacing it, which I've intervened on because it's come up to winter, so we don't need to rush. But my thought there was that given you've got a very large room and heat rises, that rather than air conditioning, which is going to suck the heat out and just pump it into the air, that a heat pump would suck the heat out of the air, which is what we want the air conditioning to do, because effectively that's what it is, and could actually put it directly into the hot water system to heat the hot water, to have an indirect exchange for the hot water system. So we could harvest the heat we don't want and put it to where we do want the heat. And I think I have also had a conversation with the landlord at the tail end of, probably middle of last week, because we continually have issues with the oil-fired boiler there. The landlord is busy funding the next attempt to get the thing to work. I've advised him I'm slightly sceptical on it. But one of the things we both agreed is that at some point, whatever replaces that, if it comes to the point of replacement, that it will be some form of renewable, because clearly that building does very much suit going for some form of heat pumps with solar panels on the roof. But it's just really, it's a matter of the proportion of who pays.
And it's just to talk about the AC unit. Having great experience of AC units at the gym failing, and certain companies telling us, oh no, you need a new one. It's quite surprising how easy they are to repair, a lot of these ones. So even if you did want to repair it, and if a company has said no, you can't do it, it's worthwhile looking at another company.
Yeah, this one, we already knew that the air conditioning there, the oil inside the units are sealed, and you can't refill them or the gas because the gas isn't legal anymore.
No, that's right. Yeah.
So it does sound slightly strange, but unfortunately, those units are finished with. But of course, the outside edge of those air conditioning units and all the space heaters upstairs, heat and vent units, they're there. Those freestanding units are about the size of air source heat pumps anyway. So in terms of visually, it would be a like-for-like change.
Yeah, that's the cost, of course.
Is there any grants that we could go for to do anything to the zone?
Well, we applied for grants
Right.
unsuccessfully, but there may well be more that will come along.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that with COP26 coming up, the government is going to be keen to have a range of grants for businesses, etc., coming up. There aren't any we can use at the moment. Some because we're not commercial. We're a public body.
Yeah. Well,
Unless the landlord applied for it.
Yeah, potentially so, I suppose. Yes, that's an interesting thought.
Yeah. All right. We'll wrap this one up then. I mean, the actions Alan is going to publicise and push out his slides, which is excellent. We need to look at.
Well, hang on. I'm going to tart them up a bit. I'm going to put a couple of, maybe change one and add one or two more possibly. But then where do we go from there? I don't think we need to go via planning, but we do need to go to full council. Do we to agree to forward these through Councillor Roach and developers?
I think so. What do you think on that, Colin?
With the weight of the town council behind it.
Well, this is a working party anyway, isn't it? So we have to go to council for any.
Yeah, but will it need discussion by council beyond a recommendation, do we think?
Well, I think clarity of purpose in terms of precisely what we're recommending that we do with it would be worthwhile. And then I would have thought it probably wouldn't require a great deal of discussion, although, as we discovered this evening, it's a really interesting topic. So I think you might well struggle to stop there being quite a lot of discussion anyway.
Yeah. I think that's the way forward.
Okay, so who's going to, Tony, is that one for you to, if I improve the presentation and resubmit it to you, you will take it forward?
Yeah, I'll take it forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's your timetable on that, Councillor Stinchcombe?
How rapidly would you need it?
Well, it depends on your timetable. The agenda for next week is going out tomorrow, and we'll have to go tomorrow. I would have thought that, therefore, we're probably aiming for October.
Well, just to change those slides,
but also to bring together the argument for what we want people to do with it.
Yeah,
so I don't think you want to rush that bit.
Well, it's Tony then that's the limiting step. I think I couldn't actually physically do it tomorrow, but I could do something so that it could be a late document for next meeting. But if Tony's the limiting step, then I'll pass that to Tony.
Yeah, I'm giving my apologies for Monday because I'm away next week on holiday. Yeah, so
October.
October meeting anyway. So that gives everyone a bit of time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Brilliant. And the other action I think was around planning. Having a discussion at planning around a policy, some policies, some green policies to do with planning attached to the yeah, well, hopefully new policy around not permitting any large scale development at the moment due to lack of healthcare, health provision.
Could I guess then? Sorry to interrupt. I guess then, looking at Vicky, then the next planning after tomorrow, the next planning meeting is in a couple of weeks' time, I guess. Without looking at the calendar, presumably planning then would come to full council with recommendations from here and that, and make it a job lot, if you like.
Yep, sounds like a good idea.
Brilliant. Okay. That's it. Item 8, any items that I would like to bring forward for the next agenda for discussion?
There are quite a lot of live issues already,
Yeah.
so I don't think councillors need to feel under any pressure to add anything else.
Yeah, no, we're doing. To be fair, we've done. I'm not sort of patting ourselves on the back too much, but I think that in a way everyone involved in this committee does deserve it, because we've got a set whole load of balls rolling, which is absolutely from where we were a year ago. It's marvellous, really. Yeah.
Can I it's not new issues, but just to re-emphasize that agenda item 4 or 5, I think it was, about like the solar things. I think it's been 2 or 3 months since we've been waiting for updates on that, and it keeps being pushed back and pushed back. I think we ought to get definitive, not all those item 5, I think there's other things on it, but
no.
So I'm trying to find the agenda.
5B.
Yeah.
5B, yeah. And obviously we'll have feedback from the other things, but and the existing green spaces, I guess, as well, 5A.
Yeah, because to be fair, I mean, if Gary can't make it, which is fair enough. I mean, if we could have some just written report or some written update, that'd be absolutely fantastic. Same with Nick or whatever. We accept that people can't get to the meetings. That's absolutely fine. But if you could just have a little update, that would be great.
As for full council?
No, for our meeting.
No, I mean, I'm saying that frequently we get written reports, don't we, coming through?
Yes.
We have had them here before now, haven't we?
Yeah, and leisure. We always get written reports for leisure, etc. Right. So we're not asking for the Bible.
Just it only has to be bullet points as well. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
What Sarah's style?
Yeah. Yeah, I see it. As long as we're getting news and we know that things are moving forward, that's what we really just need. Okay, date of next meeting. Any ideas for anyone?
It sounds like we want a meeting, I would have thought, probably towards the end of October, so that we can feedback on the climate change action programme in particular, which should be in full swing by then.
Yeah.
And that'll also give the opportunity for Gary to report back on the installation of solar panels.
Brilliant. Or after the winter, I'm sorry, looking for full council date. What date is that? Oh, 26th. 26th.
What about the 18th, Monday the 18th? Is that too soon?
That is only a few weeks. I don't know whether perhaps the 1st of November.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be right.
Is that good with everyone?
Yeah.
1st of November. Yeah.
When she's back, could you get Alicia to add it to the calendar?
Yeah.
Thank you.
If we could provisionally book that then, Colin, 7 p.m. on the 1st of November.
Yep.
Right. It's only for me to wrap the meeting up. Thanks, everyone. It's great meeting again. See you next time. All the best.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Alan, as well.
You're welcome.